So you've probably heard this term thrown around a lot, right? The anti-inflammatory diet. But what does that even mean? Is there real science behind it, or is it just another health trend? Well, today we're going to cut right through all that noise. We're going to show you how the food you eat can either be fueling a hidden fire inside your body, or it can be the very thing that helps put it out.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get a handle on what chronic inflammation actually is. Then, we'll look at the foods that are basically fanning the flames. After that, we'll build our anti-inflammatory playbook, the good stuff. We'll even tackle some of those tricky questions you always hear before we land on one simple first step you can take.
So let's start with this fire alarm idea. What exactly are we trying to fix here? It's so important to understand the difference between the good inflammation that helps you heal and the bad kind that just sticks around, causing trouble. One's a lifesaver, the other's a real problem.
Let me just start by asking you something. Do you feel constantly tired? Maybe you've got aching joints or that nagging bloat that just won't go away? You know, experts say these things aren't just a normal part of life. They can actually be the first whispers of chronic inflammation.
Okay, so at its very core, inflammation isn't the bad guy. Not always, anyway. In fact, it's your body's own emergency response team. You get a cut, and bam! Your immune system sends in the troops, white blood cells, to fight off any bad guys and start patching things up. You absolutely need it to heal. And this is where we get to the heart of the matter. Acute inflammation, that's your body's superhero. It swoops in, does its job, and then it leaves. But chronic inflammation, well, that's the villain. It's like this low-grade fire that's burning throughout your whole body all the time, and it never goes out, just slowly damaging healthy cells and setting the stage for major diseases.
So what does that simmering fire actually feel like in your day-to-day life? Well, our sources show it can show up as anything from joint pain and weird skin issues to that feeling of brain fog where you just can't think straight. These are all little signals that your body is stuck on high alert, fighting a battle that has no end in sight.
Okay, so if we know what's causing the problem, how do we start putting out the fire? Now, here's a really crucial point that all our sources agree on. The most powerful first step isn't about what you add to your diet, it's about what you take away. We have to stop throwing fuel on the fire.
You know, when you look at the research, these three groups are the usual suspects. Added sugars and refined carbs, they literally trigger your body to release these inflammatory messengers. Unhealthy fats, like the trans fats you find in a lot of fried foods, directly raise inflammatory markers in your blood. And those ultra-processed foods in a box, well, they're kind of the triple threat, often packing sugar, bad fats, and a bunch of other chemical additives all in one.
All right, enough with the doom and gloom, right? Let's talk about the good stuff. Let's move on to how we can build a plate that actively fights back against all that inflammation.
So if you're looking for a roadmap, a proven blueprint, this is it. Researchers constantly point to the Mediterranean diet, and you should think of it less like a super strict diet and more like a style of eating. It just works. Why? Because it's naturally full of whole foods and it automatically cuts out the culprits we just talked about. There are even studies showing it can lower those inflammatory markers and help with conditions like rheumatoid arthritis.
This right here, this is what your anti-inflammatory arsenal looks like. Think of your shopping cart as being filled with weapons. You've got your fatty fish, packed with potent omega-3s. You've got your leafy greens and colorful fruits just loaded with antioxidants. And you've got spices like turmeric and ginger that bring these amazing bioactive compounds to the fight. Each one of these foods is a unique tool to help your body. Okay, here's a really fascinating little nugget we dug up in the research. We've all heard the hype about turmeric, right? But some evidence is now suggesting that black cumin seed oil might be even more powerful. It has this unique compound, thymoquinone, that a few studies have shown to actually outperform the active ingredients in both turmeric and ginger. Pretty cool.
Of course, this is where things can start to get a little tricky. The deeper you go, the more arguments and debates you find. So let's try to clear up a few of the most common questions people have.
First up, the big one, nightshades. We're talking about things like tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, and potatoes. They have this chemical in them called solanine, and it has let's just say a very controversial reputation when it comes to inflammation.
So what's the final word? Well, honestly, it's personal. While some people swear they feel worse after eating nightshades, the big scientific studies just don't show a direct link for most of us. So the best advice is to become your own detective. If you think they might be a problem for you, try cutting them out for a while and just see how you feel.
All right, next hot button issue, gluten. Is ditching gluten the magic bullet for getting rid of inflammation? Let's see.
And again, the answer really depends on you. If you have celiac disease or a diagnosed gluten sensitivity, then yeah,
Avoiding it is absolutely non-negotiable. But for everybody else, the picture gets a lot murkier. Some studies did find that gluten-free vegan diets helped people, but it's hard to say for sure if gluten itself was the actual problem.
And finally, what about the two that always seem to be in the hot seat? Dairy and red meat. What's the general thinking on these?
Here, the consensus isn't about total, complete elimination. It's more about limitation, about shifting the balance. Most experts recommend what they call a plant-forward approach. It's simple, really. It just means that plants, vegetables, fruits, legumes, make up the biggest part of your plate, while red meat and dairy play a much smaller supporting role.
Okay, and this is super important. To really, truly get a handle on inflammation, all the experts agree you have to look beyond what's just on your plate. Diet is a critical, massive cornerstone, but it's only one piece of the puzzle.
So while diet is definitely the biggest slice of the pie, no doubt, it's not the whole pie. Regular exercise, getting 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep, and finding ways to manage your stress, these are all incredibly powerful, non-negotiable tools for lowering your body's overall inflammation levels.
So how do you make this all manageable without going crazy? Well, Dr. Andrea Furlan has this fantastic, simple method. Plan, shop, cook, eat. Plan out your meals, shop from a list, cook at home so you control what goes in, and then actually eat mindfully. These are the habits that turn good intentions into real, lasting change.
You know, this quote really hits the nail on the head. We've just seen how the science completely backs this up. Every single meal is a choice. It's a choice to either build your body up or to keep fueling that slow, simmering fire of inflammation.
So we're going to leave you with this one question to chew on. Because every single expert agrees, one small change that you can actually stick with is way, way better than some radical overhaul you abandon after a week. Your journey doesn't start tomorrow with a giant leap. It starts right now with your very next small step.